Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm here today with Robert Manni of Guys Guy Radio, and we have been connected for I think at least a decade, so I'm excited to have you back. And what I really want to talk about today with you is why it's a great time to be a man, because you have certain perspectives on being a guy's guy and what's great about being a guy's guy. And maybe we should actually start by diving in with, like, how do you define a guy's guy? What is that to you?
Okay. Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question. A guy's guy is really, in my definition, he has casual confidence. He's an updated version of a man's man, but he's not macho at all. He has quiet confidence, casual confidence, comfortable in his own skin. He's the type of person that women like him, men like him. He's got emotional intelligence. He can be vulnerable. He's communicative. He knows how to listen, and he's not a know-it-all. So there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. And Shana, the reason I say it's the best time to be a man is because this is a time that men had more freedom to be whoever they want to be, yet it's never been less clear who men really are. I think a lot of guys lack role models nowadays. It's a little bit confusing for men. If you look at women, they're on an ascension, and it's a great path, and they're getting long overdue recognition. And a lot of men are not sure now how to handle it.
Yeah. And you sound like you're seeing that as a good thing, that there's not as much of a definition, so men can start to define who they are. Is that how it looks?
Well, I think that the really good news is women are getting their long overdue recognition, and it's just started. There's a lot more progress to go, of course. But for men, this is a really good time because their roles have changed also. And the guys who are aware understand that they can do anything nowadays, and they don't have to carry the ball completely in a relationship in terms of the traditional roles that men had and the traditional roles that women had. You know, some of it, I think men still want to be men. I think women want men to be men in the best sense of the word. And I think men want women to be women in the best sense of the word.
But that's a really great point. Like in the past, there was a ton of pressure on men to be the sole provider. And, you know, if anything like financially fell apart, it was all on the men. And so it sounds like there's more collaboration. There's more possibility there.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of that is due to just need and the way the marketplace is. Right. And it takes a little bit of a burden off guys, but also a lot of men feel that they still need to be the one. They have to make more money than their partner or whatever. And it's you know, that's everybody has their own perspective on what works for them, but there still are pressures on, you know, both partners in a relationship. But the thing about men that's confusing for them is that the young guys don't have role models. They're kind of caught between the MMA and manscaping, and the you know, there's the superheroes in the movies and stuff, but there's not the real guys. And it gets fuzzy as to what a real man is nowadays, because in the past, even though I don't agree with what men were, they were what they were.
They were role models.
Yeah, they
I just thought about John Wayne. Like John Wayne was such a role model for a generation.
You know, macho man, and
the macho, quiet, not vulnerable. Strength, but then like who are the role models now? You're saying young men don't have any.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And for
Yeah.
the older guys, let's say GX and boomers, they're kind of stuck where their definition, they're defined by their jobs and their wallet. And a lot of them cling to that. And you'll see a lot of guys, I'm a boomer, I see a lot of my friends, they're not sure what's next. And they want to do more. They want to open themselves up. They want to do some holistic practices.
Yes.
They want to change their diets. They want to read more books about, how you can really understand who you are, what you are, how you serve, why we're here.
Yep.
And it's challenging for a lot of guys because men, and I don't know if you agree or not, I think a lot of guys get stuck. Whether it's because of the culture we're in and it's hard to break out, or just the men are a little bit more reticent to change. I find that working in my brand and in my podcast, Guys Radio, that women are much more open to new things and much more open to the spiritual areas and much more open to trying things. It's interesting. A quick example, like my wife the other day, a rebounder showed up in our home, and it's a little mini trampoline. And I was like, what the heck is this? And like, what is this doing there? And this is going to take up space and all that. And I started reading about it and I started doing it. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought of it. And I sent it out. I sent out some Instagram stuff and things to a couple of friends, guys. And they were like, okay, great. Not for me, without even taking the time to investigate that. It's such a wonderful and helpful tool. If you're a boomer and you can't run anymore, or maybe, doing rebounding is fantastic for your health.
Wow. That's so great. And, I think women are more encouraged from a young age, girls, to try new things and it's not as much of a dig on who you are if you're not good at something, right? I think for a lot of men, it's like, well,
Very
if I don't, there's that competition. And if I'm going to look bad, then I'm going to be judged. I'm not going to be wanted, loved, etc. So there's a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, there is. And guys are competitive and with sports and all of that. And like, of course, well, the girls are in sports now at a very young age, which is great. But for guys, if they're not good at something, a lot of times if they can't master something right away, I even see it with my son, he's 7.
I see it with my son too.
We'll throw the ball back and forth. And if we went to downstairs, they have a billiards table, and, he couldn't get it right away. And I said, listen, it's like anything else, you have to practice. And as long as you make a little bit of progress and you feel good about it and you're open to it, you're going to get better. But I don't know if it's a male thing or it's my son's thing or whatever, but a lot of guys, I think, seem to feel like you have to get it right away or you start to condemn yourself, and it's really unnecessary.
It's unnecessary and it's so painful, but it is a habit that has to be broken, right? I mean, I know you've had an interesting life, and I was surprised to read that you are a Reiki practitioner and that you do hypnotherapy and all kinds of practices that I wouldn't have guessed, just by looking at you or knowing you. And so you've somehow managed to expand and open up the box, right? And I'm curious for you, like for those men who are having a hard time with that, or no, that's not for me. How did you go from conventional to opening up the box?
Well, even as a kid, I started opening up to new things. I was reading Carlos Castaneda books. I read them all when I was just a child. And I just thought anything you can do working with energy or just new things that you can practice would be fun. And I also wanted to give back. So I started learning Reiki because one of the great things about Reiki, you can treat somebody and it helps their energy flow, but you can also treat yourself. So I was a little bit selfish that way. And I found a practice that you can actually give yourself a self-treatment. And then that led me to hypnotherapy. I thought, well, that'd be really cool to be able to hypnotize people to help them.
To help them for their own good.
Yeah. And it's really, when you do hypnosis, it's, people think of the stage hypnosis, and it's really not about that. It's a very spiritual practice. And it's more about helping people. Here, the 3 big things are become a non-smoker, to sleep better, and to have weight management. So as you notice, we don't talk about the negatives there. And the reason I got into that is I was a smoker way back when I was just came to New York City, and it started to get into the way. I didn't like the way my clothes smelled. I'm an athlete, got in the way of my running and things like that. I'm like, I have to stop. So I went to a hypnotherapist, and it was great. And I went 2 months, and I'm like, I've got this. I've got it licked. And then I was out at a business event, and I said, I can have a cigarette, no problem. And sure enough, I went right back. And then I realized, it's not the hypnotherapist. It's I have to do the work. They're basically working with my subconscious. So I followed through that. That was 30 years ago. And even mentioning the word that I mentioned, that you smoke, those things, it was blocked for me And I realized that you have to do the work, but there's a lot of power in the subconscious that we have.
Oh my
and
gosh.
That's kind of led me to a lot of other practices. I've been taking a spiritual unfoldment class every week for the past 3 years.
Beautiful.
And initially, I wasn't getting anywhere with it. And then all of a sudden,
wow, you stuck with it for 3 years without
I've
getting
been doing
anywhere.
it for 3 years. Yeah.
So that's very different than what we talked about before, right? Which is like a man who isn't good at something and doesn't stick with it.
Well, I knew that it would take time because spiritual unfoldment is not like learning how to play pool or something where, 2 or 3 times you learn how to hold the cue and you can
I've been doing my practice for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
In my spiritual school. It's like, it's a forever lifetime process.
It is. And, but the nice thing is it's like skiing or chess or anything interesting where you have a practice where once you start to get good at it, there's so much more. And then you get better and there's so much more, even music or writing, you get better and better. And then you're more and more interested. And I'm just a curious person. So I thought that this path was comfortable for me. My background is advertising and marketing. And I grew up in New Jersey and lived in New York City for like 30 years and worked in some tough ad agencies. And so, I'm a regular, quote unquote, regular guy, but also I have this other side that I work on because it helps me, but it also helps me give back as much as I can. And that's what we do with my show. I try to bring on guests who have something like yourself, something that they can share with the audience that maybe there's a takeaway there that they can say, oh, that's pretty interesting. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. That's so great. And so it sounds like for you from a young age, were a curious one and you were open to all of this, the energetics and the invisible, I call them like the invisible aspects of human dynamics and communication. And you also went through a time, it sounds like, where you had cancer. And you talk about a kind of spiritual awakening that you've had. And I'm wondering, I think it's priceless, right? When people have these awakenings or near-death experiences, the wisdom that comes from that to me is just beyond anything else. And so I'm curious, like, what did you awaken to and how can that support men?
Well, I've had 2 actually. One about 2014. I'm a runner, so I run 3 marathons. I run all the time. So I was out running, and I came home and I had excruciating pain. And I laid down for about 6 hours, and my son was like a year old, and I told my wife, "Please take him out of here. I don't want him to see me like this." And I was laying there, unbearable pain, and it was 4th of July weekend. And when I got back to the city, I went to the doctor and I said, "Hey, you have a kidney stone." They did an ultrasound, but also we found you have a little growth on each kidney. We want to go in there and get those right now. I said, okay. So within a 5-week period, I had 2 robotic surgeries. Now, I had never thought of my kidneys in my life.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because if I didn't have the kidney stone, they wouldn't have found.
Known.
And the doctor said it would have been 10 years. You wouldn't have known. And then we'd be having a different conversation. So
that's a fascinating thing too, that what we think is something awful can actually turn out to be such a gift.
Well, it was a gift. I'll tell you why. I had a couple of miracles along the way. One, when they went up to get the kidney stone, it was gone.
Wow.
And it was gone. And I'd been doing a lot of meditations and visualizations and all of that. But I know I didn't get rid of the kidney stone, but it was gone. So they went up and they said, we can't find it. And I'd seen it on the screen.
Wow.
And then for the second surgery, I could tell my surgeon was very nervous. And there was a delay then. So I was sitting in that little room and you have the little hair net on and those little footsie things and you're very vulnerable. Yeah. And something came over me and it just said, you have a lot of power. You have to help these people. You've been doing a lot of work on yourself. Help these people. So I went in and I laid down and just as they were going to put me under, I grabbed one of the doctor's forearms and I said, I'm going to help you release this. I'm going to help you. And she looked at me and she said, oh, great, thanks. And then I went under and I came out of it and I saw my surgeon was beaming. And he was like, he's not the one I spoke to, but I said, what happened? He said, it was perfect. It just like plopped out and it's gone.
So easily.
And they actually used a 3D version of my kidney to help other people to study how to approach to get in there the right way robotically. And then I never thought about it again, except when I'd have to go back every year for an MRI. And then they told me, you don't have to come back anymore. If you want, we'll get you once a year, but you're good to go. Amazing. But I had another miracle happen this year where back in October, and last thing on my mind, I had an attack of appendicitis, which I didn't know. And I was laying on the ground and actually my life force started to leave me. And I felt that and I pulled it back in and I knew I had to make a decision right then and there. I had no idea what was wrong with me, but I was like 5 hours. I was in
the decision about like whether you were going to stay or go.
yeah, or go to the hospital or not. Because I think what it was telling me is if you just let go here
Yeah.
and pass out,
You'd be gone.
what happened was I got to the hospital and they put me in right away and they took my appendix out and they said it was infected. It was blocked and you were getting to the point of gangrene and some type of septosis or something where your blood gets poisoned.
Yeah.
So they got it out right in time. They gave me 2 really heavy duty antibiotics that killed everything. Yeah. And I was like, I had to learn everything again. And this is just 4 months ago.
What do you mean you had to learn everything again?
Well, just doing your basic functions was either unbearably painful or totally weird. And it was really tough. It's not like when you're 9 years old and you have your appendix out. This was serious stuff. And both times I realized how lucky I am. And when I was laying on the thing I should have mentioned is when I was laying on the ground on the floor in my apartment, a voice came to me and said, "Don't drink alcohol."
Wow.
So I stopped.
Amazing.
And that's it.
You listened.
Yeah. Well, if you don't listen, and you get that type of situation,
listen,
you're leaving your body and you don't listen, then you want to go wherever you go. So
yeah. Amazing.
So sorry about the long story, but I really learned a lot.
No, it's good. I think it's good for men to hear too, right? You can be kind of either on death's door or down and out, and you can actually receive incredible wisdom there instead of closing yourself off or feeling like, oh God, woe is me, or, going into some more of a victim state about it. Like you found your power, it sounds like, in those unlikely moments.
Yeah, I think the good news is that when you get into a situation like that, you can look at it a couple of different ways. Some of my friends, I could tell what they were thinking, that, oh, look, you do all the stuff, you haven't eaten meat, and you do all this other workout stuff and everything, and you had the cancer and you had the appendix thing. And my thing is, I know that if I didn't take care of myself the way I take care of myself, that it would have been a lot worse.
Yes.
And even my surgeon said to me, "We like patients like you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you take care of yourself. And, a lot of people come in here and it's really tough to work on them." So I think what you really need to do is be self-aware, do the work. Don't expect you're going to get an immediate reward, but realize that it's all accumulates. And it's like your life's work. You do a lot of good things and it starts to get better. And I think the biggest thing that men need to learn is, and I think just people in general, is that a lot of people nowadays try to manifest. They're all about manifesting, make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. But what they don't work on is how to receive.
Yes, that's a huge thing I work on with the men who I work with.
Yeah. And
how do you see that with the men you work with?
Well, I don't have a business in terms of coaching men or women. I have my show, I have my novel, and I just keep going. And I'm looking for bigger and better things. But my path, my trajectory is a little bit different. I'm not working as a coach, but I get a lot of requests for people asking me stuff, and I help them out as best they can. Yeah. And we'll see what happens in the future. But I always, if I'm giving advice, I try to give them advice of, number one, you have to love yourself and have to respect yourself, and then just be open-minded. And, you'll find things that work for you. Not everybody's going to want to be doing rebounding. And, I get it.
But you got to find what works for you. Exactly. I mean, the topic of receiving is a huge one that men come to me not thinking about receiving at all. But it's one of the things that I really go deeply into, because a lot of men don't have that natural, it hasn't been cultivated. Like I think women are, again, there's a little more emphasis on giving, but there's also emphasis on receiving. And I see men not having that capacity. So we get to practice together, even like giving a compliment and someone actually stopping and taking it in.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking in a compliment.
No.
Well, a lot of guys are
love.
trained to go after it, whether it's love or whatever. You go get it. You go get it. You go get it. You're the hunter.
If you can't receive it when you go get it, then it's like being at a smorgasbord starving.
Yeah, exactly. But if you learn to cultivate your, work on your inside and your subconscious and your heart, you can learn to receive. I'll give you an example. When I had been in a lot of long-term relationships, a lot of long-term relationships, and I had an epiphany, and it was, you have to make room in your heart for somebody else. It just came over me, and I'm like, okay. And then I went to Thanksgiving, and I was in a position where my family never even asked me, "Are you getting married?" They were way past that. And I said to my mother, I said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to get married." And she's like, "Really? Who are you getting married to? Who's the lady?" Know. I said, "I don't know, but I know I am." And she said, "Oh, okay, fine." And a year later, I was engaged.
Wow.
And a year later from that, I was married, and that's been 10 years. And that was the epiphany I had, which was, make room for somebody else. And I think
you were listening again. It sounds like you were listening to the the guidance,
universe or whatever, but
whatever you want to call it.
And then speaking of listening, my wife gave me the best advice I ever had. We went out on 3 dates, and my third date, I said, I'm having a great time and I've been in a lot of relationships and I must be making some mistakes. So what do I need to do to be a good boyfriend?
Yeah.
And she said, she put her fork down and she said, pay attention.
Nice.
And I said, anything else? And she said, no.
Great.
She still reminds me.
But and it sounds like you're willing to be reminded again, right? That's huge.
Well, in a pandemic, you have no choice. There's no place to hide.
There's no place to hide. Can we go back to it's a great time to be a man?
Sure.
And one of the things I read that you wrote is you're talking about the re-emancipation of today's man. And I want to hear what you mean by that.
Well, I think because of this is a time, as I say, where men have never been more free to be whoever they want to be. So there's not the same judgment as to you have to be exactly who your dad was or, be the insurance salesman or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But men nowadays can be anything that they want. And I think there's a new freedom there. And then everybody's roles have kind of changed. And there's all types of different things going on with the sexes inside the sexes, apart from the definitions of the different sexes. If you go back to the Native Americans and all, they had like 5 or 6 different genders. And so I think for men nowadays, nobody's going to, you don't have the same pressures on you. You have different pressures, but you can still be whoever you want to be. But the challenge is so many guys are confused about, well, what do I need to be? And I see so many young men have stage fright in terms of dealing with women because they feel they either get angry that they're not getting their way or that, they want to do what the woman wants. And then the woman wants the guy to be the guy. And like the key is the guy should listen, have an idea and suggest something and not just get overrun by women who are making it happen. Because the challenge for women is how do you turn it off? You have to be go business.
It's hard for us to turn it off and not be in our masculine.
Yeah. And for guys, you have to be careful not to let the woman just control everything because they're not going to have use for you if you do that. Women want men to be men, as I say, in the best sense of the word. And I've had all kinds of relationship coaches, females, tell me that's what they hear. And I think it's true. So if you're a guy, you want to open yourself up, you want to relax, you want to listen, you want to be helpful, but you don't want to solve the problems for your partner. You just want to be there as a sounding board and help out as they see fit, as you can help them.
I mean, easier said than done. And I think there's that path of finding relaxation within yourself, which I think starts from what you said before, which is loving and respecting yourself. And then you're not having to prove or defend or get into it around things as much. Yeah.
And then when you get away from that definition that a lot of guys, particularly in my generation, have, like, this is my job, so I'm important or I'm not. And this is my, my wallet. And there's a fear as to if there's an attack on either one of those, what am I going to do? Who am I?
Who will I be? Right. Who am I?
Yeah. So I think for young guys today, along the way, you want to, and I think they're doing it, start to open up and be open to trying a lot of different things and being open to who they can be. And I think that's a really good thing. However, I do find a lot of young guys they feel like, I don't know what to do to date. They're afraid of, because of the technology, you can connect with people very quickly, but making a real connection, 30 years ago, it was, hi, my name's Larry. Can I buy you a drink? Now, of course, that's not how it is now, but there was some skills that you had to develop in terms of
I had a client
interpersonal skills, right?
Yeah. I had a client yesterday who was like, a woman reached out to me and I said, hey, if you want to talk, let me know. And I was like, okay, I don't like to give scripts or have anything like you have to do. However, I know when I was dating online, if someone said that to me, I was kind of like, there was nothing that captured my interest or nothing that seemed out of the ordinary or nothing that was exciting, right? So I don't have hard and fast rules, but there is a way of like, okay, who are you? And show yourself and, engage, like you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to leave men with? What haven't we covered that feels important?
I think, again, that men have to love themselves. They have to always be learning, never stop learning. And they have to take care of themselves, I think, physically, whatever they consume, watch what you consume, diet, fitness, media, etc. And give yourself good stuff because, over time, even though you'll realize that you are not your body, you're beyond that, you are in your body. So you better take care of it because you only get one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. And where can men find you?
Okay, 2 places. One, Guys Radio. It's my radio show in Southern California. It's also a worldwide podcast. And I have a YouTube channel called Guys TV, but just use my name, Robert Manni. I also have a novel called The Guy's Guide to Love. It's about an honest but ambitious advertising executive. He discovers that corruption is the key to success, and he embarks on a dishonesty safari to learn how to lie, cheat, and scheme his way to love and money. It's called The Guy's Guide to Love. And it's been called the male successor to Sex and the City.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. All right. So, thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.